What's up, sports fans? Welcome to the Sports Opinions Podcast, weekly New York sports update. I am your host, as always, Alex Cuesta. Find me on Twitter at @_Cuesta30. And of course, if you're listening to Sports Opinions, you're definitely going to want to go find them on Twitter at SportsOpinion30. And if you're listening to this as well, you're listening on YouTube. So go ahead and click subscribe if you haven't already. So we're going to get right into it. Going to start this weekly New York sports update right away with baseball. We're going to talk a tale of two teams in the city of New York. One trending upward, another one just kind of middle of the rung and disappointing. You probably wouldn't be able to guess who I was talking about if I was just being that vague. We're going to start off with the team who's been rather disappointing, and that's the New York Yankees. Overall, they're 5-6. They went 2-4 on the week, and they just had some really disappointing showings. They weren't hitting very well all year so far. They had a few explosions, but nothing really of note. They beat Tampa Bay, they beat Baltimore once, but they've just been taking a drugging against a bunch of other teams and against a bunch of other pitchers that shouldn't be beating them. In terms of their outings, the starters have been doing okay. Nothing spectacular. The hitting has been They're lacking timely hitting. There's been a lot of games that they've lost that they've had guys in scoring position late in games, especially in the overtime loss to the Orioles, and extra inning loss to the Orioles, and it's just that they're lacking that timely hitting, that clutch hitting. So that tells me that the Yankees are going to be okay. The power rankings were just let out. They're still sitting in 5th. I'm not worried about the Yanks. Their bullpen needs to get figured out. It's a problem right now. Guys that were reliable last year, like Tommy Kahnle and Chasen Shreve, are coming on and giving lackluster performances, something that needs to get fixed. But overall, I think that the Yankees are going to be okay. We'll see with the upcoming week. Guys that have stood out so far, you have Didi Gregorius, who just continues to play well. He's hitting really well, not doing anything wrong at all. Aaron Judge has come on. He hasn't been hitting all the home runs. He's only up to 3 home runs so far, but he's getting hits. He was 3 for 4 in the last drudging against Boston. Boston just whooped their ass 14-1 in Fenway, which was absolutely embarrassing. But they're playing well. Judge and Gregorius alone. Everyone else, Gary Sanchez is really struggling. Giancarlo Stanton is really struggling. So we'll see their upcoming games. They have to finish their series in Boston. Then they play Detroit, and then they play Miami. Boston, they need to at least get one out of these 3. They can't get swept. I know it's early, but just for the optics of it, they need to get one out of the 3. And then they have Detroit and they have Miami, or 2 teams that they can beat. So we'll see. Hopefully they can run the table and play pretty well this upcoming week and turn this negative that we have to start the year into a positive. Now moving on to the team that is dominating. 8 straight wins, 9-1 to start the season, 6-0 over the last week. The New York Metropolitans have taken it to everyone. They swept the Washington Nationals, who have been considered their biggest rivals. They swept them, took it to them. And the surprising part is their starting pitching hasn't been that dominant starting pitching that you would think of. They've been the ones that have been getting timely hits. They've been pushing runners that were in scoring position in. And their bullpen has been fantastic. Guys like Hansel Robles, who has struggled all last year, is coming in this year and putting on good performances. Famiglia getting saves. Gazelman and Lugo both coming out of the pen and just lighting it up. So right now, Mickey Callaway's pushing all the right buttons. And it really helps that Cespedes, he's striking out a lot, but he's already up to 10 RBIs. His strikeouts come at opportune times, if you can call it that in a baseball game. But when there's runners in scoring position and Cespedes up, it seems that he's knocking them through. And again, the old guys are coming through for him. Jay Bruce has been getting timely hits. Todd Frazier is still being a good player and getting hits. Michael Conforto coming back in the leadoff spot is really shaking off the rust, and I think he's going to break out. So right now the Mets are in a really, really good spot. Again, 6-0. this past week, and they swept the Washington Nationals. Right now, they're in a series against the Miami Marlins. They have to finish that up. No reason they can't win this series. Then they play the Brewers, and then they start another series against Washington, which, again, every series against Washington's big. And it's just a great morale booster whenever they can take these series. But the Mets looking really good, hoping that they can keep it up. Switching gears to the NBA. Right now, the season is winding down again, like I said last week, mercifully for our two local teams, the Knicks and the Nets. Starting off with the Knicks, they went 1-2 on the week. Their record's at 28-53. They started off the week with a win against the Heat, who is a playoff team, which is a nice win. But then they've lost their past two straight. They lost to the Bucks, another playoff team, and then they lost to the Cavs pretty handily. They'll see the Cavs again. That's their final game of the year, and it couldn't come soon enough. They're really, again, the questions in the offseason: who's their point guard going forward? How many bigs are they going to keep? Which bigs are they going to keep? Who are they going to draft? It's the same as last week. I can't wait to see what they do in the offseason. I think their front office is a lot better than it was under Phil Jackson, even though, mind you, Phil did pick Porzingis, and he did pick Frank, who's been turning around. Frank Ntilikina, been playing better as of late. So we'll see what the front office of the Knicks do, but again, season can't come to end quick enough. Moving on to the Brooklyn Nets, who had a really good week, actually. They got their first 3-game win streak of the year coming at the end of the year. 3-0 this week. They have the same record as the Knicks, as 28-53. And mind you, the Nets' goal, as sad as it was to get to 30 wins. So they're right there at the threshold. You have to imagine, if Jeremy Lin doesn't get hurt, D'Angelo Russell plays more of this year, that 30-win threshold was definitely attainable. But overall, the Nets were surprising. They beat Milwaukee. They beat Chicago twice. And now they have Boston to round out the year. Don't know if Boston's really going to go super hard. I know they're fighting with the Raptors for that number 1 seed, but they are without Kyrie Irving. They are obviously without Gordon Hayward. So it's going to be... the Nets have played pretty well against Boston, and they really get it up for tough teams. They're going to want to end off the season with the 4-game win streak. And just to note, Allen Crabbe has been killing it. He's really stepped up as the leader in terms of scoring, especially the last 3 games. He's got 25, 20, and a career high in 41 in the most recent game. So big ups to Allen Crabbe. D'Angelo Russell's playing well. He got 22 points against Milwaukee, 21 points in the most recent game against the Bulls. He's getting a high number of assists. It's really, really a nice thing to see. So the Nets, obviously trying to end off their year 4-0. Got a tough one coming up against Boston, but they can definitely do it with the way they've been playing. And again, though, it's going to be a good note. Mercifully, season will come to an end. Hopefully, we'll track the Nets' off-season moves, and they'll make some good ones. Moving on to the NHL, where 3 out of the 4 teams I'm talking about are done with their season, going home, off-season started. One of those teams, New York Rangers, finished off the year limping to the finish line, 0-2, lost to the Islanders, and they also lost to the Flyers. They were shut out by the Flyers. Lundqvist logged 40 saves in that game. He let up 5 goals, though, which isn't great. Defense wasn't there. Offense wasn't there. He was on his own, which has been the case in a lot of his tenure as a New York Ranger. But the Rangers are one of those teams. Can't wait to get to the offseason, and honestly, neither can I. We're going to move on to another team that's year is over, the Islanders. They went 2-0, surprisingly, to finish the year. They obviously beat the Rangers, I mentioned. Then they beat the Red Wings in overtime. They finished off the year strong. They have decisions to make. They have to really lock in John Tavares. I think he's a guy you can't let go. And just that's really it about them. They have some decisions to make. They got to make the team better. Finish off the year with a 35-37-10 record. Rangers finished off 34-39-9. And the final team, the Buffalo Sabres, they lost all 3 of their games this week. Season over, 25-45-12. I believe it's the worst record in hockey, which is sad. But overall, they have some revamping to do. Jerry Gaskill got mad at me. I didn't talk about Middlestat. Middlestat scored a goal on the 6th against a loss against Tampa Bay. Again, they have decisions to make. They have players on this team, but they need to add. So they really need to build towards the offseason and hopefully have some pride in the team and have some pride in the franchise and get some more winning players on this team. Now, the team that's in the playoffs, the team that's playing, the New Jersey Devils, finished off the year 1-1 this past week, 98 points on the table. They're going to be playing the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round, which is a team that they swept in the regular season. They ended off the year 44-29-9. And what really can you say? They're going to look for Taylor Hall to be the leader again, to really step up and play well and, win games for him. They need Kincaid to stand on his head, and they just need to get production all around like they've gotten all year long. Looking forward to the Devils series against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is a really, really good team. Yeah, they swept them in the regular season, but the regular season means jack squat when it comes to playoffs. So rooting for the Devils. Really want to see them win. We'll talk about next week. We'll figure out how the series is going, and hopefully they sweep them. That would be a great thing. Moving on to soccer, Major League Soccer, MLS. Red Bulls didn't play any MLS games, but they did play CONCACAF Champions League games, which they lost to Chivas Guadalajara. They lost the first game 1-0, and then they tied the second game, so they lost it on aggregate 1-0. They're out of the Champions League. Now they're focusing on the MLS completely, and they really need to climb up the table, only sitting there with 6 points. And moving on to NYCFC, they were dormant this past week. Upcoming game, they have Real Salt Lake. They have 13 points on the table, sitting at 4-1-0. Red Bulls are 2-0-2. NYCFC, I said it last week, they're a good team. I'm interested to see what they do against Real Salt Lake, and I'll really report on what the hell goes on in that game. Moving on to some NFL talk. New York Giants still on the show this week. Odell Beckham Jr. steals the show whenever he's in the news. But it's different news this week. First, I want to talk about a weird one. Ray Lewis called out Odell Beckham Jr., saying that his loss in God is the reason why he's in all the trouble he's in. Don't really think he's in that much trouble. He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything near what Ray Lewis did, which was be involved in a murder case at the age of 25. So I think Ray needs to back up a little bit. Called out OBJ for breaking his promise on reading Bible verses with him over the phone. A little bit weird to do and a little bit tough to expect a guy with his notoriety of Odell Beckham Jr. to stop his day just to read Bible verses with you, Ray Lewis. Sorry, bro. Don't expect him to do that. But things have shifted. He's seemingly off the trade block. Teams don't think that he's going to be traded anymore. That was the report out today, Wednesday the 11th. Now that things have shifted, that we might be seeing Odell Beckham Jr. getting a long-term deal from the Giants, which would ultimately be in their best interest. He's a great player. He's a generational player. Eli Manning wants him. Keep him around. He reported to the workouts, which you don't have to do, but it's a real good sign that he did. That means he's invested. He wants to be there. He's shown explosiveness. The reports are out there. A guy that didn't show, that probably should be showing up to every damn thing, is embattled lineman Ereck Flowers. He didn't show up to the workouts. It doesn't bode well for him. He's already on thin ice with this new regime over at the Giants. So personally, I wouldn't mind seeing Flowers off the team. I don't think he adds much. I think only reason he's on the team is because he was the number one draft pick or first round draft pick, but he doesn't belong there. He's not a good lineman. Giants will be good without him. Rounding off the Giants talk, Landon Collins and Eli Apple. And Landon Collins, they had beef last year. Came out, Collins said they squashed that beef a long time ago. Hopefully they squash that beef. Both guys have talent. Landon Collins, obviously one of the best safeties in the game. Eli Apple is a good corner who can get better. He's young. If he gets his head on, he could be really good. So hopefully that's squashed. Giants can move on. That defense can go back to being imposing. Next up, the New York Jets. Not big news from the Jets, but they added depth at receiver. They added Charles Johnson, and they added depth at linebacker, Kevin Minter. Minter has had more success over his 5 seasons. He's 27 years old. He's a guy that can step in, be a rotation player, fight for a starting spot, which is awesome. Always good when you have linebackers that can do that type of thing. The linebacking core is turning into a strength for the Jets. Let's hope that it stays that way because it's been really weak over the past few years. And in terms of Charles Johnson, I'd be lying if I knew much about him. His stats don't pop off. He's 29 years old. He only has 3 full seasons in the NFL. He's kind of a guy that can fight for a spot, maybe get a rotational spot here or there, but I don't know much about him. Maybe we'll learn more about him once exhibition time starts, preseason starts, but that's down the road. Lastly, Bills news. Only thing that jumps off the page about the Bills over the last week is Richie Incognito has retired. The guy's been embattled. He's a really good lineman, caught up in that whole entire hazing thing down in Miami. Since he's been on the Bills, he's been a guy that the players rave about. LaShawn McCoy even put out an Instagram post with a picture of him in Incognito, called him his quote-unquote favorite white boy, and said he's not allowed to retire. But it's been reported that Richie Incognito is retiring. He's going to be remembered for the negative things, but the guy was a hell of a lineman. With that ends this New York Sports Weekly Report from the Sports Opinions Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got a good enough news from all your New York sports teams, which is what I'm trying to do, not leave out anyone. And if you enjoyed what I'm doing, I'm going to keep doing it. Going to try and do this every week. I enjoy it, obviously, because I do the podcast every week, and this adds something to the plate. So again, I'm Alex Cuesta, your host. Find me on Twitter at @A_Cuesta30. Find Sports Opinions on Twitter at SportsOpinion30. Thanks again for listening. Go click subscribe on YouTube. Have a good one.